Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, Kathy, I think you're the one who needs to learn a lesson." The expression on her face? Absolutely priceless. It was like she couldn't comprehend what was happening. Shocked, maybe even a little scared, as if she'd never been challenged like that before. "Hey, I'm Kathy. You ever have one of those moments where you think you've come up with the perfect plan? So clever that nothing could possibly go wrong? Yeah, well, let me tell you, that's exactly what I thought too. But man, did it ever backfire. So, I was dating this guy, Ben. We'd been together for about 9 months. He was sweet, good-looking, had a stable job, pretty much the whole package. Everything was going fine, at least on the surface. But recently, I'd started feeling kind of neglected. You know how it goes. He'd be on his phone during dinner, barely paying attention to me. Or he'd say he'd call, and then hours would pass and nothing. Little things, but they started piling up, and before I knew it, resentment was building inside me. I wanted more from him, more attention, more affection, more proof that I mattered to him. But instead of just talking to him about it like a normal person, I got this brilliant idea in my head. I thought, I'll break up with him, and then he'll realize what a mistake he's made. He'll come crawling back, apologizing, begging for another chance. He'll see just how valuable I am once I'm gone. It felt like the perfect plan, right? I'd get the validation I needed, and he'd finally start treating me the way I wanted. Genius, right? I mean, isn't that how it always goes in the movies? The girl breaks up with the guy, and he's devastated. He fights for her, promises to change, they reconcile, and live happily ever after. That's the script I had in my head. So one evening, I went for it. We were sitting on his couch, some mindless action movie playing in the background, when I turned to him and said, "Ben, I think we should break up." I said it just like that, cool, casual, as if it was no big deal. And for extra measure, I even threw in, "I think I could do better." Ouch, right? But I was convinced he'd see through my words and fight for us. I expected a big reaction, tears, anger, some dramatic outburst, followed by a promise to do better. I had it all planned out in my head. He'd beg for another chance, start showering me with attention, and I'd finally get what I wanted. Proof that he cared. Because that's what guys do when they're really into you, isn't it? They pass the test. Oh yeah, the test. Did I mention that? I've always believed that men need to be tested in relationships. You have to know they're really committed, right? Otherwise, how can you be sure? I'd made this breakup my test for Ben, confident he'd pass with flying colors. So, I left his place that night feeling pretty pleased with myself. In my head, I was already picturing how I'd graciously take him back after he groveled a little. I even rehearsed my forgiveness speech for when he'd inevitably call, begging for another chance. But then, nothing. No calls, no texts, not even a sad face emoji. A week passed, then 2. Radio silence. Suddenly, that smug feeling I'd left with started to fade, replaced with confusion and a little bit of panic. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Where was the desperate apology? The promises to change? It slowly started to dawn on me. Maybe Ben wasn't playing along with my script. Maybe I'd seriously misjudged the situation. Where were the grand gestures? The tearful phone calls? The flowers left on my doorstep? As the days stretched on, the silence felt heavier. I found myself checking my phone constantly, hoping every buzz, every notification, would be him. But it never was. And let me tell you, that silence, it was deafening. On the outside, I tried to play it cool. I'd casually tell my friends, "Oh, I'm so over him," with a laugh and a toss of my hair, pretending like I had moved on. But inside, I was falling apart. Every night, I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that last conversation over and over. Did I go too far with that "do better" comment? I wondered, was he really that hurt? Did I actually push him away for good? It's funny how silence can be so loud. Every day that passed without a word from Ben felt like a slow, sinking realization. What if he didn't miss me at all? What if he wasn't coming back? Each passing moment felt like a gut punch, and it was starting to wear me down. I'd daydream about running into him at our favorite coffee shop, imagining how he'd look at me with those soft, regretful eyes, and I'd graciously accept him back, because of course, he'd have realized what a mistake he made. In my head, the scene was perfect, him asking for forgiveness, and me, magnanimous and forgiving, taking him back. But the reality? The reality was me, sitting in my room, clutching my phone like a lifeline, waiting for a message that never came. Alone in my apartment, I started to wonder if I'd made a terrible mistake. It was like I was stuck in this weird limbo, one I had created. I was too proud to reach out, but at the same time, too insecure to fully move on. Every day, I questioned myself, torn between wanting to fix things and refusing to admit that I had been wrong. Who knew that trying to test someone's love could backfire so spectacularly? I thought I was being clever, that I was in control, but the reality was, I had set a trap for myself. I had played a game I couldn't win. Now let's check Ben's side here. You ever have one of those moments where your whole world just collapses? Yeah, that's what hit me about a month ago. Let me walk you through it. There I was, chilling on my couch with Kathy, my girlfriend of 9 months. We were watching some action flick. Can't even remember which one now. I was feeling pretty good, you know? Comfortable, happy. The kind of happy where everything feels normal and safe, like we were in a good place. Then, out of nowhere, she drops this bomb on me. Ben, I think we should break up. I swear. It felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. I just sat there, stunned, trying to wrap my head around what she just said. I mean, where did that come from? I thought things were good between us. Sure, we had our little disagreements, but nothing major. Doesn't every couple? But then she hit me with the real kicker. I think I could do better. Man, let me tell you, that stung. It was like a sucker punch to the gut. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. My mind was spinning, trying to figure out how we'd gone from being fine to this in the space of a single conversation. I'll be honest, my first instinct was to beg her to stay, to ask her what I'd done wrong, to promise I'd fix it. That's what you're supposed to do when someone you care about wants to leave, right? You fight for them. But then, I don't know, something inside me just snapped. Do better? Like I was some kind of stepping stone, something she could just upgrade from when she felt like it. Suddenly, I wasn't so sure if I should fight for her. She was trading me in for a newer model. At least, that's how it felt. And man, that's not how you treat someone you care about. So I didn't say anything. I just sat there, staring blankly at the TV, not really seeing it, my mind racing. I could feel Kathy's eyes on me, probably waiting for some kind of reaction. Maybe she expected me to beg, to get upset, to fight for her. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Not after she hit me with that. When she finally left, I just sat there for what felt like hours, trying to process it all. At first, I was numb, almost in disbelief. But the more I thought about it, the more the anger started bubbling up. Not just anger at Kathy for blindsiding me with that breakup, but anger at myself too. How had I not seen this coming? Were there signs I missed? Had I been so comfortable that I didn't even notice her pulling away? That night, after turning everything over in my head 100 times, I made a decision. I wasn't going to play into whatever game she was trying to start. If she thought she could do better, then fine. She should go right ahead and try. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to realize she'd made a mistake. So I did what I had to do. I blocked her number, unfriended her on all social media, and just shut her out. It wasn't easy, though. Every time I saw something that reminded me of her, our favorite coffee shop, a movie we'd watched together, her shampoo still lingering in my bathroom, it was like a knife twisting in my chest. I kept thinking, what if she reaches out? What if she realizes she wants me back? But I kept reminding myself, you deserve better. Better than someone who thinks you're not good enough. Because the truth is, if she didn't see my worth, then I wasn't about to stick around trying to prove it to her. The first week was the hardest. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, about to text her something funny that happened at work, or I'd wonder what she was up to, like I always did. But every time, I'd stop myself, remembering the way she looked at me when she said she could do better. That memory alone was usually enough to keep me from caving. My buddies were great through all of it. They dragged me out to the bar, try to set me up with other girls, do anything to take my mind off Kathy. But honestly, I wasn't ready for that. I needed time to get my head straight, to figure out what had happened and why. I wasn't just going to dive into something new without giving myself a chance to heal. As the weeks went by, it got a little easier. I threw myself into work, spent more time at the gym. Anything to keep busy and keep my mind off her. Slowly, day by day, I started to feel more like myself again. Don't get me wrong, it still hurt. There were moments when I'd remember something we did together, and it would sting. But it wasn't the same desperate, hollow feeling I had in the beginning. Now, when I think about Kathy, it's different. I don't feel that overwhelming need to have her back. Instead, I feel stronger, like I've dodged a bullet. Because here's the thing. If someone really loves you, they don't play games. They don't test you or make you feel like you're replaceable. That's not love, and I'm not going to settle for anything less than the real thing. Now let's check Kathy's side. Remember how I thought I had this brilliant plan? Well, buckle up, because things didn't exactly go as expected. A whole month had passed since I dropped that breakup bomb on Ben. 30 days of silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I was convinced he was just taking his time, gathering the courage to come crawling back. After all, that's how it was supposed to go, right? He was supposed to be blowing up my phone, begging for another chance. But as the days ticked by, the confidence I had started to fade. I began to feel antsy. I mean, come on. This was not part of the plan. I thought by now he'd be at my doorstep with flowers, or at least a tearful voicemail asking to talk things through. Instead, it felt like I had completely disappeared from his life, as if our 9 months together hadn't meant anything. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided it was time to confront Ben, to explain the whole test thing and fix this mess. So there I was, standing outside his apartment door, heart racing. I had spent hours getting ready, hair perfect, outfit flawless, making sure I looked absolutely irresistible. I thought once he saw me, he'd realize what he'd been missing all this time, and we'd fix everything. That was the plan. Anyway, I took a deep breath and knocked. The wait felt like forever, but finally, the door opened. And there he was, Ben, looking annoyingly good, I might add. Ben, I said, flashing my best smile. We need to talk. He didn't say anything. He just stood there with this unreadable expression on his face. But that was okay. I had a whole speech prepared. I was ready for this. Look, I started. I know you must have been confused about our breakup, but here's the thing. It wasn't real. It was just a test. I paused, expecting that wave of relief to wash over him. This was the part where he'd understand everything and we'd laugh about it later. But that look never came. His eyes just stayed cold, locked on mine. Undeterred, I pushed forward. I needed to see if you really valued our relationship, if you'd fight for us. And well, I think you've learned your lesson now. I flashed my most gracious smile, the one that always won him over. So what do you say? I'm willing to take you back. We can put this whole silly misunderstanding behind us. I reached out to touch his arm, already picturing our tearful reunion, the sweet relief of everything going back to the way it was. But Ben? He didn't move. He didn't smile. And he definitely didn't sweep me into his arms like I'd imagined. He just stood there, looking at me with a kind of sadness I hadn't expected, and in that moment, my stomach dropped. Now let's Ben sighed. You remember how I told you about Kathy breaking up with me? Well, buckle up, because things just took a wild turn. So, there I was, minding my own business when, out of nowhere, there's a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was a little thrown off. But when I opened the door, man, I couldn't believe my eyes. There she was, Kathy, all dolled up like she was ready for a night out. For a split second, I was stunned, almost like a reflex. But then it all came rushing back. The breakup, how she said she could do better. Yeah, that part stung all over again. Ben, she said, flashing that smile I used to love. We need to talk. I didn't say anything at first. Honestly, what was there to say? I just stood there, waiting, because whatever this was, it wasn't going to be me making the first move. But Kathy, oh, she had plenty to say. She launched into this whole spiel about how the breakup wasn't real, how it was just a test. A test. Can you believe that? Like our relationship was some kind of game she could play whenever she felt like it. I couldn't even process it at first. She was standing there, smiling, fully expecting me to just go along with it like none of the past month had happened. And the more she talked, the more I realized. She actually thought this would work. As she went on about how I had learned my lesson and how she was willing to take me back, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. I needed to see if you really valued our relationship, she said, almost casually. If you'd fight for us. Fight for us? Was she kidding? She dumped me, told me she could do better. And now she expected me to come crawling back? But wait, it gets better. She actually had the nerve to say, I think you've learned your lesson now. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I had spent the last month trying to move on, to rebuild my self-respect. I'd come to terms with the breakup and learned a lot about myself in the process. And here she was, thinking she could just waltz back into my life as if nothing had happened. Like I'd just been sitting around waiting for her to return. I looked her straight in the eye, and with a calm but firm voice, I said, No, Kathy. I think you're the one who needs to learn a lesson. The look on her face? Priceless. It was like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I know exactly what you were doing, I continued, steadying myself. This wasn't just a test. You tried to monkey branch, and when that didn't work out, you came back here thinking I'd still be waiting with open arms. Her expression shifted from shock to confusion, and for a second, I thought she might actually get it. But deep down, I knew she was still clinging to the idea that she could manipulate this situation in her favor. She had underestimated me, and I wasn't about to let her play me like that again. Her face went pale, bullseye. Well, guess what? I continued, not giving her a chance to interrupt. I'm not interested in being your backup plan. I'm not here to boost your ego or play your games. I could see the shock in her eyes, like she couldn't believe I was standing up to her. But I wasn't finished yet. You don't get to treat people like they're disposable, Kathy. You don't get to play with someone's feelings, and then expect everything to be fine when you decide you want them back. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say next. I deserve better than that. I deserve someone who values me, who doesn't need to test my commitment. So no, I'm not interested in getting back together. We're done. And with that, I did something I never thought I'd do. I closed the door, right in her face. I heard her voice muffled through the wood, a mix of disbelief and anger, but I didn't care. I stood there for a moment, heart racing, but also feeling a strange sense of liberation. I had taken control of my own life for once. No more games. No more waiting around for someone who didn't appreciate me. As I leaned against the door, a weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't going to let her waltz back into my life after everything she put me through. I had chosen my own path, and now it was time to walk it with my head held high. As I heard her footsteps fading away, I didn't feel sad or conflicted. I felt free, like I'd finally stood up for myself, finally shown her that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. Sure, a part of me still cared about Kathy. You don't just switch off feelings overnight. But now, I knew I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't play games, who would value me as much as I valued them. So yeah, closing that door wasn't just about shutting Kathy out. It was about opening up a whole new chapter for myself. For the first time in a long time, I was actually excited to see what came next. No more being a pushover. No more accepting less than I deserved. From now on, I was going to prioritize my self-respect over any relationship. And you know what? It felt damn good. I stood there for a moment, savoring the weightlessness that came with my decision. I had taken a step toward reclaiming my power, and that was worth celebrating. As I turned away from the door, I felt a surge of determination. The world was wide open, and I was ready to embrace whatever came my way, on my own terms. Now let's check Kathy's side. Remember how I told you about my brilliant plan to test Ben? Well, sit tight because things got a whole lot more complicated. So, there I was, standing outside Ben's door, feeling like a complete idiot. This wasn't how it was supposed to go at all. He was supposed to be grateful, relieved that I was giving him another chance. Instead, he dismissed me like I was nothing. Me, the girl who was supposed to be in control. As I walked back to my car, my cheeks burning with humiliation, I couldn't help but replay the last month in my head. See, what I hadn't told you before was that during that time, I hadn't exactly been sitting around pining for Ben. No, I'd been busy with someone else, someone I thought was a better catch. His name was Chad. He was tall, dark, and handsome, with this air of mystery that just drew me in. He had a confidence about him that made my heart race and a charm that made me forget all about Ben's quiet moments on the couch. Chad was everything I thought I wanted. Adventurous, spontaneous, and completely different from Ben. I found myself laughing more, feeling more alive, and for a while, it felt like I was living in a whirlwind romance. But now, standing outside Ben's door and feeling like I'd just been slapped in the face with reality, I started to wonder if I had made the right choices. Sure, Chad was fun, but was he really the one? Did I throw away something meaningful with Ben just to chase after a fleeting thrill? The thought nagged at me as I got into my car, the engine roaring to life but my heart feeling heavy. I realized that my so-called test had backfired spectacularly. Instead of proving that Ben cared, I had pushed him away, and now I was left feeling lost and confused. The excitement of Chad began to fade, replaced by a nagging doubt about my decisions. Maybe I needed to rethink everything before I let my pride get the better of me again. I'd met Chad at a coffee shop about a week after I'd broken up with Ben. He was everything Ben wasn't. Exciting, unpredictable, and always up for an adventure. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. For a couple of weeks, things were great. We went on spontaneous road trips, danced until dawn at exclusive clubs, and shared passionate kisses under the stars. It was like something out of a romance novel. I was on cloud nine, convinced I'd made the right choice in leaving Ben behind. But then, well, reality hit. hard. I'd been so caught up in the excitement of it all that I hadn't noticed some glaring red flags, like how Chad never wanted to define our relationship. Whenever I tried to bring it up, he'd deflect, charmingly suggesting we were just enjoying the moment. I found myself hoping that one day he'd come around, but deep down, I knew it was a risk I was taking. Then there were the times he'd disappear for days without explanation. At first, I told myself he was just busy with work or caught up in his spontaneous lifestyle. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to feel a gnawing unease. The thrill of our whirlwind romance began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of insecurity. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just a temporary distraction for him. I found myself comparing everything back to my relationship with Ben. His reliability, the way he'd always check in, the little things that showed he cared. I started questioning my decision to jump into something new so quickly. Was I really trading up, or was I just running away from something real? I had dismissed all the warning signs, convincing myself that Chad's mysterious charm was part of his appeal. But about a week ago, I decided it was time to take our relationship to the next level. When I suggested we make things official, you know what Chad did? He laughed, actually laughed in my face. "Kathy, babe," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "This has been fun, but I'm not looking for anything serious." "I thought you knew that." Just like that, my fairy tale crumbled. Chad made it clear he had no interest in a relationship, treating me like nothing more than a casual fling. I felt used and tossed aside, like a toy he'd lost interest in. That's when thoughts of Ben began to creep back into my mind. Good, reliable Ben. The one who had always been there for me and treated me like a queen. I convinced myself that I had made a mistake and that what I truly desired was the stability and love he offered. So, I devised a plan to win him back. I told myself it wasn't just because Chad had rejected me. No, it was a revelation about what really mattered in a relationship. I was certain Ben would welcome me back with open arms. But now, as I stood in the parking lot outside Ben's apartment, the full weight of my actions hit me. I had lost them both: Chad, the thrilling fling who had never wanted anything serious, and Ben, the good man I had taken for granted and pushed away. As I drove home, tears streaming down my face, I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of it all. I had been so focused on avoiding hurt, so determined to keep the upper hand, that I ended up hurting myself more than anyone else ever could. I played games, thinking I was being clever, and all I accomplished was pushing away someone who genuinely cared for me. And for what? A fleeting thrill with someone who viewed me as disposable. The worst part? I couldn't even be angry at Ben or Chad. This was all on me. My choices, my games, my mistakes. As I pulled into my driveway, a realization struck me. Maybe it was time to stop playing games. Maybe it was time to start being honest with both others and myself. Because this constant maneuvering and need to be in control was exhausting and lonely. I walked into my empty apartment, the silence enveloping me. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel the weight of my actions, the pain I had caused Ben, the foolishness of my infatuation with Chad, and the emptiness that now filled me as I sat on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen. I made a promise to myself: no more games, no more tests. The next time I found someone, I would be upfront, honest, and real. Because life isn't a game of chess, and people aren't pawns to be moved around at will. They're human beings with feelings, just like me. And maybe, just maybe, if I start treating them that way, I might find the genuine connection I've been searching for all along. It's going to be a long journey, learning to be vulnerable and to trust without needing to test. But as I sat there in my quiet apartment, I realized it's a journey I need to take, both for my own sake and for anyone who might care about me in the future. So here's to new beginnings, to learning from mistakes, and to the hope that someday I'll find someone who loves me not because I've manipulated them into it, but because I've shown them my true self, flaws and all. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.